Many of you know that my grandfather, Rabbi Lorge of blessed memory, grew up in Germany before fleeing from Nazi persecution in 1936. He was the son of a rabbi, and he loved our people's folk literature. So when he himself became a rabbi, he would often share folk tales with his congregation, in particular as he approached Slichot, like we are doing on this Shabbat. It was an opportunity for him to engage the whole community, young and old, and also he held the conviction that was shared by our Hasidic masters that sometimes a story can enter the heart in a way a sermon cannot. Our Parsha Ki Tavo, as you've heard, is infamous for its curses, less known, but they're there for its blessings. It enumerates the curses in great detail. But we are told a basic premise: if we keep the mitzvot, God will bless us. If we don't, God will curse us. For some really wonderful teaching on that subject, I hope you'll join us for tomorrow's B'nai Mitzvah, who will be teaching us a little bit about what they think of that idea. But among the lists of blessings, we're told, is that God will give us abundant rain. And amongst the curses, we're told that we will receive a terrible drought where only dust will fall from the sky. So we do have a tale about something like that. It takes place in a certain village in Eastern Europe. There's a synagogue there where if you walk into the entrance, you'll see many normal things you'd expect to see in any synagogue. You'll find a tzedakah box, some bookshelves full of a mishmash of different sidurim, different prayer books. You'll find a very dusty chair set aside for Elijah, Kisei Eliyahu, that's there for Brit Milah. But then prominently displayed, of all places, on the eastern wall, the place of significance, you'll see at the entrance there something you won't find anywhere else. An ordinary pair of grocer's scales, the kind you would weigh vegetables with. And if you ask the shamish, the caretaker of that synagogue, what those things were doing there, he'd tell you this story. He'd tell you that long, long ago, in that very village, there had been a drought. Months went by without rain, the wells dried up, and the land became scorched, and then the crops failed. And then dust did fill the sky and fall down like rain. What do Jews do when they're in such situations? In those days anyway, they went to the rabbi. The rabbi did what any pious man would do. He prayed. He prayed for rain, but no rain. He gathered the great wise ones of the town to pray in front of the holy Torah scrolls, but no rain. He shut himself up in his room, and for 7 days and 7 nights he prayed unceasingly, but no rain. He then proclaimed Mondays and Thursdays to be fast days for the entire community, but still no rain. One night, long past midnight, the rabbi sat in his room alone, deep in prayer. And suddenly he seemed to fall asleep, and as if in a dream, he heard a voice call out to him, "Rabbi, these prayers will bring you nothing. Only one man in town can help. Kaufmann the grocer. Let all the Jews in town assemble and have Kaufmann lead the congregation in prayer." And then the rabbi awoke, mystified. Kaufmann the grocer? Kaufmann the grocer? That can't be. I know Kaufmann the grocer, and there is no way Kaufmann the grocer can save this community. I mean, Kaufmann never came to synagogue. Kaufmann didn't even probably know Hebrew. He certainly couldn't read any of the prayers. Kaufmann was known for one thing and one thing only: feh. Now, for those of you who don't know, feh is Yiddish. I don't even have to translate it. It means what it sounds like. But I'd like to hear you give it a try. Let me hear you say feh. Good, good. That is what Kaufmann the grocer was known for. That's what he said most of the time. If you asked him a question, he would say, "Thank you, exactly right." If you asked him, for instance, if he could grab a different turnip from the crate, he would say, and if you asked him to help with the cart that you had gotten stuck in the mud, he would say. If you asked him if you could pay on a different day because Shabbat was almost here and you had to get home to get things ready, he would reply, but with more oomph, he would say, "Thank you." And if you asked him to add dill to his kreplach the way they did in the fancy towns, he would say with so much vigor, the rabbi could not believe it. Kaufmann the grocer saved the town. Clearly he was more worn down than he had thought. There was no way the Almighty had chosen Kaufmann to save them all. This was a dream, and a bad dream at that. So he went back to his prayers. He prayed all day, all night, but then once again, he dozed off, and in his dream, a voice spoke to him once again. "Why do you continue to pray when you know it will not help you? Only Kaufmann the grocer's prayers will save the community." He awoke with a jolt, knowing that he could not ignore a message twice given. So when morning dawned, he gathered all of the elders of town and gave them the instructions that they were to go from door to door, knocking on every house, to gather every Jew in the village to the synagogue. Within an hour, the pews were filled, and people were mumbling nervously. They didn't know what to expect. They didn't know what was going on, but perhaps the rabbi had some new idea of how to bring the Almighty's mercy to them. Who was the last to show? Kaufmann, the grocer. He took a seat in the very last row. The rabbi rose from his chair, went up to where he sat, and said, "Kaufmann, go up to the bima. You are going to be the shliach tzibur. You are going to be the prayer leader today." And there was a wave of whispers around Kaufmann. Kaufmann. Our Kaufmann. The rabbi surely knows he can't say a single prayer in Hebrew. There's laws about embarrassing people in public. What is going on? And Kaufmann, to his credit, also spoke up. And he said, "Me lead the prayers, Rabbi?" Thank you. And with that fed, the entire congregation broke out in laughter and kvetching and angry shouts and demands to know what on earth was going on and what the rabbi was thinking. The rabbi was growing increasingly embarrassed, reaching his wit's end, and beginning to feel some new doubts about his dream and the voice he had heard. He became so agitated that he said, without any generosity at all, "I don't care if you don't speak any Hebrew, if you don't know a lick of the prayer service, Kaufmann, get to the bima and lead us in prayer." And Kaufmann, instead of obeying, shrugged the tallis off of his shoulders and onto his seat, stood up, and marched out of the synagogue. The elders gathered around the rabbi, very nervous. What do we do now? Surely he's never going to come back. The rabbi raised his hand to silence them and said, "We'll give it a half hour. We'll see what happens." Quiet filled the sanctuary, but they didn't have to wait a half hour. Only several minutes later, Kaufmann was back, and in his hands, he carried the scales that he used in his grocery store. And lifting the scales high above his head, he marched up to the bima. The congregation looked on with amazement, wondering and giggling a little bit what he planned to do with his grocer's scales. But Kaufmann got onto the bima, still holding those scales high above his head and in plain sight of the entire village. And he spoke and he said, "Lord of the universe, Almighty One, I am an ignorant man, but I have worked hard my entire life. I know I am impatient, I know I am unkind, and I know that sometimes I could be nicer to my neighbors, but I also know, Almighty God, that I am honest. with these scales as my witness, I promise that I have never, ever once put my thumb on them. I have never once let their measures go off. I have never once been dishonest in my dealings with all of the members here before you. I have done all that I could to observe your mitzvot and to treat everyone generously and kindly, and most importantly, honestly. So, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if I have found favor in your eyes, if I have upheld the sacred mitzvot, I plead with you that this very minute you take pity on us and you send forth rain. As soon as the grocer finished this unusual prayer, there was stunned silence, and then the tap, tap, tap of rain upon the roof, and a peal of thunder, and the heavens opened up, and the drought was done. They were saved. Weeks passed, and this still really bothered the rabbi. Why Kaufmann the grocer? So what? He has honest scales. Certainly there were other, more learned, more prominent members of the village who were just as honest as Kaufmann. And that's how the rabbi slowly found his answer. For one by one, you see, the merchants of the town came to see the rabbi. And each of them, in the strictest of confidences, said that at some point or another, really because of carelessness more than anything else, had realized that their scales were not quite calibrated exactly right, or maybe they had overcharged regularly just a little bit, nothing significantly, or maybe they had neglected to use their full income for the tithing for the school and the orphans' home and the burial society and the synagogue. But it really was not done on purpose, and they were certainly going to be more punctilious about it in the future. It was then that the rabbi went to Kaufmann and asked for his scales so that he could place them at the entrance of the synagogue so that everyone would remember as they came in and came out that the health of a community can hang in the balance of their everyday dealings with one another. And of course, when Kaufmann heard the request, he said, "Oh, please. It's the end of the story. Well done. Thank you. Shabbat shalom."